Hey everybody, KC here, and I'm with Michael Sansolo. Not actually with Michael. You're in Chicago, and
I
you're
am.
at PLMA, Private
Yes.
Label Manufacturers Association convention. They're actually doing a show. Um, so tell me what's going on the ground there?
There's a couple of interesting things going on here, Kevin. First of all, private label is doing very well at the moment. Some of that is fueled by the inflation that we've had the past couple of years. Some of it fueled by during COVID when there were shortages of products and people gave a lot of private label trial. So what I see on the exhibit floor is these folks are raising their game. They're trying to be more innovative. They all say they want to be national brand equivalent or better, which is not always the position private label had, but that's what they're working on. For me, the most interesting part of this show was their opening speaker today. This was a huge get. They had a guy named Dave Ronaldo, who is the president of Aldi. And, let's be straight, Aldi is a private label store. Everything in it is private label. He did a great job because he talked to the manufacturers about how he needs to partner better with them. And he didn't all make it, here's what you need to do for me. It was, here's what we need to do together. And I've never heard an Aldi presentation before, but it's pretty eye-opening. They've got a lot of stores. Over the next 5 years, they're planning to add 800 more stores. That's a lot of stores.
Just in the U.S.
This is just US. Um, they also say that about a quarter of
Can you talk
Americans
about where's the real estate for
you
800?
know what? They're finding real estate. What I thought he might mention, but he didn't. You have covered this repeatedly. CVS and Walgreens are closing a lot of stores. Those are kind of all these size stores.
Right.
And he says there's an enormous percentage of Americans, somewhere around 25%, who are now shopping Aldi at least on a somewhat regular basis. So their footprint is established and it's growing. Now, there's no other company that is, projecting anything like adding. They're going to go up to 3,200 stores. Right now, they're around 2,400. So they're adding 33% of their store fleet over the next 5 years. And he said there are markets they still don't have good penetration. One market he said that they're definitely looking at is Las Vegas, California to a big extent. So it was just really interesting. And as he made the point early on, he wasn't there to make a sales pitch about why Aldi is so great. He wanted to talk to the
He
supplier.
doesn't have to. He doesn't have to.
He really doesn't have to. Yeah, everyone knows who they are. And certainly in the private label community, you have to assume, and this is the largest audience I've ever seen for speech at PLMA. I've come here a number of times. They said they have their largest audience that they have ever had. And I got to believe he was a piece of that because all of the folks in that room listening to him want to work with Aldi.
So when he was talking about the opportunities that they would have, Aldi would have with vendors to work together, what was the big want? What was was there one thing that he talked about that it was like, hey, listen, we could do one thing together that would just knock it dead. What would it be?
It's almost a cliche to say this. I don't know him. I don't know Aldi that well, so I'm going to give them credit that they really mean it. It's, almost a relentless customer focus of figuring out what the customer wants, how to evolve with the customer, and stop focusing on all the other parts of business that, as we know, get in the way of things all the time, and focus on the customer, all about the sale, not about the buy, all about the sale. And, he said it comes down to how we strategize together, how we consider product development together, how we consider innovation together. And that's a very strong message. And again, I don't have experience with Aldi. It's possible we'll hear from some readers who are going to say, yeah, they say that, but they do this.
Right.
Or they might come back and say, nope, that's what they're like. When you sit with Aldi, you know what they want. And if you provide it, they're happy with you.
Well, and let's face it, there are a lot of presidents of big companies that have 2,400 stores that say one thing and it doesn't necessarily filter down to the people who are getting it done at the front lines. But that's not to say that it can't happen. But in some ways that would be an anomaly and would be good for Aldi and would point to the fact that they're a competitive threat to a lot of different retailers.
And the thing is, they have to be taken seriously because you and I have both had the chance to travel around the world And there are a lot of countries where they went in and completely upset the apple cart on retail because they develop a very loyal shopper base. And again, because they're all private label, if you become devoted to an Aldi product, you can only find it at Aldi. And
Yeah.
so that is the card they play like crazy. It's also limited assortment.
Yeah.
So if you're going to bring them products, and he makes this point, you got to bring products that somehow are going to be unique because, you know, they're dealing with 2,000, 2,500 SKUs. They're not going to have a lot of slow movers in there. They've got to have stuff that they know is going to sell.
Slow movers are
And I,
going. They're gone. They're
absolutely. And to your point, you know, probably every CEO would say this. One thing that I thought was kind of interesting, and like you, I've been to a lot of conferences. I've never seen this happen before. They're based in Chicago. This conference is in Chicago. There had to be 50 Aldi people who he brought with him to the conference. So that's 50 people who are now going to go back and say, well, here's what Dave said. And, you know, as always, execution is everything. Execution eats strategy for lunch, breakfast, and dinner. If these guys execute on this plan, and based on the way they have grown worldwide, got to believe they know something really powerful about execution.
so I'll be more of a threat to independence or chains. I would think.
I think everybody has to take them as a
Yeah.
threat because it's a market by market thing. I would think if you're an independent retailer, you have to look at them. And he even opened his remarks by talking about how when he was recruited to Aldi and the first time he went to one, you know, it's not that impressive a box. He couldn't believe it was a supermarket when he first saw it. He thought he was outside of Walgreens. And when he went in and the more he got to know about the company, the more he realized how good they are at what they do. But I think independent operators have to go see them and don't go see them and say, you know what, they don't do produce or meat like we do, because that's not their strong suit. You got to look at why customers are so loyal. You and I have had this conversation. We both live in somewhat Tony suburbs. I know people who, you know, drive Mercedes-Benz or BMWs and they go to Aldi to pick up groceries. And it's like, why? Because their selection is so tailored, you don't have to make many decisions. You go in, you need ketchup, they have one kind of ketchup. You need pasta, one kind of pasta. You're not making a lot of decisions. And of course, they've got a price advantage.
Hmm.
So everybody has to take them seriously.
Okay, so I'm assuming the PLMA also has an exhibit floor, right?
Yes.
Like not a lot of food industry associations with exhibit floors anymore. It's them and NGA, right? What'd you see? Anything cool? Anything fun that you said, "Ooh, I haven't seen that"?
A couple things. I'll tell you, one of the things you notice at this exhibit floor is they have a lot of international suppliers. And I did talk to a couple of them. I know
Oh,
you've talked about
did the word tariffs come up?
I raised it. And I just asked them, you know, what kind of concerns? And a lot of them said they don't really know yet, which, and I know you have made this point very well that we certainly have to be asking, what is this going to mean? And it may be, you know, I'm going into their booth. They may not want to tell me that we have already started loading up warehouses in, you know, Wyoming with product because it's got to be here now. I also, there are some innovative products. I was telling you that one of the last booths that I went to, good thing I did this at the end of the day, where they're taking alcoholic beverages and actually creating miniature cocktails, but it's in like a little plastic pouch, kind of like the thing that you might get mustard or ketchup at a fast food restaurant. And so you can carry these with you in your pocket. There was one guy I was talking to who said, boy, I'd throw 5 or 6 of these in my pocket to go
It
to my
sounds
kid's high
really
school graduation.
It sounds really dangerous.
They have some that you also freeze and you eat like one of those old push-up pops. And I will,
Or
I
like the
will,
yogurt thing, like those long yogurt tubes.
yes. And I did have one. I had a Bellini. And I will tell you, it's definitely got alcohol content because I can feel it. I think they said it's about an 8%, 9% alcohol, which is like 18, 19 proof.
Again, I mean, yeah, I mean, that sounds great until until your kid goes into the refrigerator or
And
freezer
takes
thinking
the,
they're getting a yogurt. Instead, they take a Bellini to school.
yeah, where I can actually see,
Social services will be the first call they make.
let's see the good side of this is suppose you're having a picnic. Instead of
Fair
having to
enough.
bring a bottle of wine, you can bring some of these tailgating.
All right, what
But
else?
no,
What else
as
did
with
you say?
I saw some really interesting international foods. I was talking to this one woman who's bringing in products from India. And what was so interesting about hers is the products are completely assembled in India. So if I like Indian food and I was eating a samosa, which is kind of a sort of a fried Indian dumpling. Once she
It's an
explained
Indian
it,
empanada, basically.
basically, yes. She said when you get one in the US, even at a good restaurant, it always has potato in it, and it's a US potato. The stuff they're selling because it's made in India is an Indian potato. So she said the flavor profile is slightly different. It's going to taste more authentic Indian. And I thought that was kind of interesting. You know, Indian
But
food
you
is
like
actually
Indian
from
food.
India.
Was that the case? Did
I'm sorry.
you think it was better?
I thought it was very good. Honestly, I didn't have two samosas there to do a.
Right.
I thought the samosa was that I had was extremely tasty. I had one dumpling with tikka masala, which is a chicken dish. And I will tell you, I was talking to someone and the spice hit me, and you know, Indian food can pack a lot of flavor and a lot of spice. But it's an interesting item and it's sold frozen and shelf stable, which is kind of interesting. But the fact that it is Indian food from India, that's something I've not seen a lot of.
Well,
They also,
you go ahead.
well, I was going to say, because this show is about all forms of private label, they have a probably 40% of the show is non-foods, a lot of cosmetics. I was talking to one company for pet care, pet products, and you're home with your pets all the time, but one was a device that through an app on your phone, you can tell the item when to release food so your dog can get it. It has a camera so you can see what the dog is doing during the day. You can give it a treat or a biscuit. And there was also a water bowl that is constantly circulating the water so that again, your dog has fresh water all day long.
Let him eat, let him drink stale water. I'm not really.
You know,
When
you
they
gotta be
start complaining, I'll start worrying about
nicer
that
to your
stuff.
dogs.
Um, okay, well, listen, I mean, I think it's really interesting. And you're gonna be there another day or two, right? So it'll be very interesting to
Just one
see
more day.
one more day. If I think the whole international thing is going to be fascinating. I think that that's going to be if a lot of private label is being imported into the United States, depending on where it's being imported from, um, it's going to be an issue. And as I said in morning newsbeat on Monday, this isn't politics at this point; it's economics,
Oh,
and
this is
we'll have to
business.
see how it breaks, how it's going to play out. We're just responding to the promises that have been made.
And you know, and Kevin, what we don't consider is there are ingredients that are going to be impacted.
Right.
There may be certain crops that are coming in from other countries that are critical ingredients in products that are manufactured in the US. We have no idea where this is going to go. It is something that is likely to be a reality. And I thought you made a very good point on this. It's a discussion inside companies they have to have that what could this mean? And what are we going to do about it? You know, it's kind of like what happened with COVID. There were a handful of companies who saw the signs of a problem out in Wuhan and started loading up on products. And then when the COVID tidal wave hit us, they were more prepared to deal with it than others. Obviously, it didn't last 2 years, but they had a little bit of a jump. I think we're going to see the same thing here. Companies are going to have to sit down and say what kinds of things. It could be equipment, it could be ingredients, it could be finished products.
Yeah.
What are we bringing in that could be impacted?
Yeah, I just think, this is another subject for another day. I think retailers, if they are not doing a comprehensive audit on their stores to determine what products are being imported, what elements of what ingredients in their products are being imported, what equipment is being imported, and what cogs and nuts and bolts, pieces of equipment within equipment is being imported. If they're not doing a comprehensive audit to figure out what their exposure is, I just think they're being irresponsible and they're not dealing with the reality of the moment.
And again, I think you have made this point well. I'm going to reinforce it. This isn't political. This isn't taking a stand, you know, for or against the incoming administration. This is a business reality that could be coming with this administration. It's business realities with every administration. I've talked to people who said, you know, the Biden administration put a lot more regulations on us. It made business harder. This is a case where we have a pretty good indication. As a candidate, Donald Trump had said what he hoped to do. And so far as he's assembling his cabinet, it's not like he's veering off in another direction. So folks have got to ask themselves that question, what could be real here? What could be the impact on us? And I like the way you said it. It could be a component of a piece of equipment that happens to come. It could be China, it could be South Korea, it could be Malaysia, could be France. And what if there's suddenly a tariff on that? And what if we can't get that component? Will that equipment, how do we get it?
Yeah. Well, listen, we're going to know in about 60 days. So,
We sure are.
hey, listen, enjoy PLMA, enjoy
Thank
Chicago,
you.
and I will talk to you when you get back.
Nice to see you,
Yeah.
Kevin.